Hello? Rescue hooks to rescue, Mayday! Get ahead, West. Fast, Mayday, what's your location? Get the panel out of here, hurry up! We need radio silence, baby. Water in that 2.5-inch line. 48 inch water in a 2.5-inch line. To the rope, to the rope, to the rope. 35 in the rear, 35 in the rear.
Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello there. Thanks again for listening to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we discuss the line of duty deaths of firefighters and paramedics so that we can learn from these tragic events. This is episode 44, which occurred in Despard, West Virginia in February of 2014. This incident is a unique firefighter line of duty death where a firefighter was killed by a falling cell phone tower during maintenance work. Listen to us as Denis and Dirk and I discuss this unique incident and the lessons learned. Hey Dirk and Denis, how are you guys today? What's new?
I'm good.
What's happening?
Well, I don't know. I was listening to the weather this morning on the television, and the national weather forecast was that spring was right around the corner. And the question that pops into my head is, where is this corner? Because it's not obvious here.
It's a long block. Do you have snow? I thought you got a bunch of rain.
We got a bunch of rain on Friday, but then it went down to minus 13, right? So, by Friday, by Saturday afternoon. So, and it just turned into an ice castle. And, washed away some of my snow. My snowbanks sank from 5 feet to 3 feet, but they're still there. And the grass was showing, and I says, oh, it looks like a pixie forest, right? Because all the grass is standing up, and it's all silver and shining right across my lawn. I says, yeah, thank you very much.
Well, we got a bunch of snow. Actually, Dirk got more yesterday, right? We had no snow for a long time. Very little, very dry. Grand Prairie was fighting forest fires already. In the bush around the city.
Yeah, we had started last night or in the afternoon, and my lawn, you could see half of it. The rest was still a little bit covered with ice, but now everything is like, I'm not even sure. I guess 10, 15 centimeters. So it was a good dump. And as Paul said, we needed. I think the province declared the wildfire season officially open March 1st. So we definitely need the moisture. I don't think this is going to help much, but.
Yeah, it's already open. They opened it 10 days early. They opened it like January 20 or February 21st or something.
Oh, that way.
Yeah. I think this spring is going to be a good spring to be retired.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good spring for overtime.
Oh, yeah. Overtime.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. There's not enough pay for humping hose across Hill and Day for 12 hours, getting black as hell. I remember those days. And anyway, I'll just leave it at that for all the guys who are still working. I don't want them to get depressed.
Pissed off. Yeah, depressed. What's new? You watching, playing, reading anything?
I just downloaded, because I'm not good with reading, I downloaded The Modern Fire Officer on Google Books. And I just started listening to it. It's interesting how to deal with staffing, intergenerational problem solving, and this whole diversity, inclusiveness. So I'm looking forward to it.
Cool, that's good.
I've been paying a lot more attention on Facebook and social media to fire trucks with Battenberg patterns on the side of them, and there's quite a lot of them out there.
It's growing. Yeah.
In Sweden, yes.
No, it's growing in North America too. I think they're trying to get some yellow on there to be safer.
Yeah, and I'm seeing some trucks for 20 plus years ago that were doing that color scheme, and it's quite interesting actually. But there's a lot of new trucks out there, and I think the European designs are starting to become, they're being experimented with, right? And people like driving around in luxurious cabs, right? And that kind of stuff. So, and sliding doors like buses, and you can just walk in and out with your gear on and not have to duck your head or anything, right? So I think that's attractive to some guys, but still, I look at the layout of these trucks, and everything's so tall, right? They try to get these narrow, short wheelbase footprints, but you need 9-foot firefighters to work with them properly, right? Which
Yeah,
is
that's
crazy.
those
Yeah,
of the European fire trucks are built on commercial chassis, so they're usually a little bit higher, um, but they are well engineered and thought out. And the nice thing about this, most of them are very standardized for the country,
Yeah,
so it almost makes it boring. Here, really, everybody has their customization and does their special stuff, and but over there, it's very strict when it
right.
comes to um, changing things on it. So if you go to Berlin, you check out the frontline engine, and then you go to Munich, and kind of looks the same. Like I can tell you where the supply hose is. I can tell you where the attack hose is. I can tell you where the spreaders are because it's all in the same spot, right?
There's nothing wrong with that.
no,
Oh no, no, not saying there's anything wrong with it. It just makes it boring. So Duck would be all like boo, ugly, no chrome, right? So but yeah,
I'd
no,
agree.
it's really it's just more efficient, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. It's definitely far more interesting and entertaining to watch guys opening all the doors to find that you know that Halligan they know is on the truck somewhere.
That
That's
happens in Europe as well.
but the Euro influence of covered up pump panel doors and rear mount pumps and more of an enclosed, streamlined body has been coming here for quite a while, since the early 2000s, and now it's really taken off. I mean, it's rare to see an outside pump panel in Canada anymore. But which that it keeps it neater and cleaner, I guess. This week's incident, February 1st of 2014, a 28-year-old male volunteer firefighter died after being struck by a collapsing cell phone tower.
The fire department in question, Company 7, where the deceased firefighter served, has one station with 35 uniformed members, which serve a population of approximately 9,000 within an area of about 88 square miles. The department responds to more than 600 calls per year, ranging from fires, vehicle crashes, medical emergencies, technical rescues, and public service calls. The department operates 2 engines, one heavy rescue vehicle, a tanker, 2 utility trucks, a brush unit, an off-road utility vehicle for off-road use, fire suppression and recovery, and a boat.
So the volunteer fire department was Company 13, and they were dispatched as first due, and also had the initial incident commander. So he was in that company also. They were one station with 4 uniformed members, and they served, which on-duty members, I guess. They served a population of approximately 3,500 within an area of about 35 square miles. So quite a small, low population, small area. Currently, they have 15 volunteer fire departments that operate as separate entities within the county, but clearly they cooperate together.
Yeah, so this actually is in West Virginia, and eastern United States. Of course, it's common to have, and in Canada, it's common to have a whole bunch of different fire departments serving an area and cooperating together and stuff like that. Denny's familiar with those, of course, down in Nova Scotia and the northeast United States. And out west here, we're regionalizing all those guys, or trying to. But then that brings its own thing. Anyway, West Virginia, the State Fire Commission mandates career fire department or volunteer firefighters in the state of West Virginia must be certified to 1001 Standard on Firefighting Professional Qualifications Level 1. Firefighters also have to be certified in hazardous materials awareness and operations. CPR, basic first aid, so basically 120 hours of training. The state also mandates that all fire officers be certified to 1021 Fire Officer Professional Qualifications Level 1, and all chiefs and other chief officers must be certified to NFPA 1021 Fire Officer 2.
Got a little bit of information about the incident commander here. So the initial incident commander, which I remind you was from Company 13, so Station 13 essentially, had more than 37 years of experience and over 10 years as a chief officer. So he's not a newbie. The IC's department and the IC did not have any training records to provide to NIOSH during the investigation, and were not able to document compliance. He was not able to document compliance with straight training requirements. The department did not provide NIOSH investigators with documentation of any standard operating procedures, training requirements, training records, or department requirements to become a firefighter.
The deceased firefighter had more than 15 years of experience and had received training on topics including emergency medical technician, firefighter 1 and 2, fire officer 1, emergency vehicle operations, hazardous material awareness and operations, principle of extrication, rope rescue awareness, and swift water rescue awareness. He also received training in a number of national incident management systems. NIMS training includes ICS 100, Introduction to Incident Command, ICS 200 for single resource and initial action incidents, IC 362 multi-hazard emergency planning for schools. Never heard that, but Paul probably knows a thing or two about
Me
that.
neither. That's a different one.
Interesting. NIMS 400 Advanced Incident Command System, IS 700 Introduction to NIMS, IS 701, and a whole bunch more. Like he should be more qualified to be in command.
There's a lot. Yeah, there was a lot.
That's a lot. Okay, so he was certified by the West Virginia State Fire Commission for the firefighter level 1 in 2002 and firefighter 2 level 2 in 2005. He was also certified to the fire officer 1 level.
Yeah, so he had a lot of incident management or emergency management and command training.
But it's not unusual to have, very senior officers and command personnel in fire departments, more than 30 years experience, not have all that recent training, because a lot of, speaking for myself, 39 years in, that stuff was not really certifiable back. I mean, I took, 1001, level 1, level 2 when in the 70s, right? But there was no certification that was easily available at that time for those courses. So you don't get that. And, 25, 30 years in, you're not going back and taking a level 1, 1021 course or 1011, 1001 course. You're just not doing that. And because it's just not really part of what your daily expectations would be. So plus you got a lot of experience already and a lot of background. So, just because it isn't on paper doesn't mean you don't know it. That's where I'm going with that.
We are starting to see more municipal governments, including fire service and industry, taking more incident command training lately. I teach incident command, and the market is really busy right now with people wanting to advance their incident management skills as legislation pushes out, and of course more disasters, more frequency, more interoperability, all that kind of stuff. We're seeing a growing trend in that, even though many of my fire friends go, I don't need that incident command stuff, but it's coming.
Yeah, they're wrong actually, because I think incident command is something you should take no matter what your level in the organization. You need to work with other organizations. You need to be able to do plans, and they need to all mesh together. Just working with your municipality is important.
Yeah, I'm doing a consulting job right now with the municipality here in Alberta who they want a bunch of more incident command training. And actually the fire chief, I'm going, I want my guys to have, everybody to have at least 200 and all my officers to have 300 and maybe 400. And I said, now, chief, that's more than most people are doing. You need to know that, right? You sure you want that? He says, yes, because when they had a big emergency last year, and he said the guys, they felt the need to understand why they were being told to do what they're being told to do. How does those decisions happen? How do those objectives get made? And they felt that need to understand that, and that's why he wants them to have more training in that area, which is interesting. That kind of was a takeaway from me in the meeting when he said that.
You need to be functional.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the site. So the site here that happened is the site they responded to was more than 2.5 acres on top of a hill that was located within the jurisdiction of Company 13, which was the First Due Fire Department. There were 2 cell phone towers and 3 structures that housed electrical components and a generator to support the operation of the cell phone towers. Access to these towers was up a muddy, partially graveled road, requiring the use of a 4-wheel drive vehicle. The owner of the site had contracted a company to improve the site access road to accommodate tower maintenance work. The first tower was 343 feet tall. It consisted of three 41-inch sides and three round legs that were fastened together with diagonal braces forming the shape of a triangle. The tower was secured with guy wires connecting it to the ground anchoring points inserted into concrete slabs. The guy wires were attached to Tower 1 at elevations of 80, 160, 240, and 320 feet. Tower 1 was the first tower to collapse. Tower 2 consisted of three sides approximately 16 inches wide and three round legs fastened together with a continuous 3/8-inch solid bar welded to the legs in a diagonal pattern for its entire 312-foot length. Tower 2 was also secured with guy wires attached to it to ground anchoring points inserted into concrete slabs. During the collapse of Tower 1, the top portion of Tower 2 also collapsed, most likely from some of the guy wires on Tower 1 contacting the top of Tower 2 and pulling it to the ground. There was approximately 180 feet of Tower 2 still standing when the first due companies arrived. Both the cell towers had been inspected in May 2013, so a year before, and a 5-person crew was on site on February 1st to conduct maintenance. 4 of the maintenance workers had ascended Tower 1 and started removing damaged diagonal bracing members prior to replacing them with new, larger members and the associated hardware. Other maintenance workers stayed on the ground to fabricate new members and assist in raising them to the maintenance workers that were up on the tower. 3 of the maintenance workers had ascended to a height of approximately 70 feet. The other maintenance worker ascended to approximately 20 feet. All of the maintenance workers had and were utilizing the appropriate clothing, safety equipment, and fall protection to safely conduct the maintenance at elevations they were working at. Multiple diagonal members had been removed prior to replacing them, which may have contributed to the collapse of Tower 1. 2 maintenance workers were killed during the collapse and 2 were injured. All of the maintenance workers were still attached to the tower with their personal fall arrest systems after the collapse. The 2 injured maintenance workers remained conscious after the collapse.
I'll talk about the equipment and personnel. Company 13 was initially dispatched for the initial cell phone tower collapse and responded with Brush Truck 13, staffed by a chief, deputy chief, and a firefighter. Additionally, 1 county ambulance from the County Emergency Medical Agency, staffed with the County Emergency Services Lieutenant, and 2 paramedics were dispatched. A second ambulance staffed with a County Emergency Services Captain and an emergency medical technician also responded. The assistant chief for the County Emergency Services and also a county medical examiner was notified at the time of the initial dispatch, and he immediately responded to the scene. The dispatcher initially told the responding units they were responding to a reported structure collapse. Once on scene, the Company 13 chief radioed dispatch and confirmed Company 13 was on scene with confirmed entrapment. The Company 13 chief requested heavy rescue units for extrication. All additional units that responded during the incident were dispatched on request of officers after their arrival on the incident scene.
The PPE that the firefighters and the other members of the department were wearing, Company 7, they had full ensemble structure firefighting gear and helmet. The incident command and deputy chief of Company 13 were wearing jeans and high visibility jackets. The Company 13 firefighter had the full ensemble of structural firefighting equipment. The weather was clear. The temperature was approximately 35 degrees Fahrenheit when the incident occurred. That's about +3 for our Canadian friends. The portions of the ground were covered in snow. The recorded high temperature for the day was up to 57 Fahrenheit and the low was 26 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds were reported to be calm and the weather was not considered to be a factor in the incident. That's probably why they were doing maintenance on the tower. It was a good day to do maintenance, not windy. On February 1st of 2014, at approximately 11:39 hours, Central Dispatch received a call reporting the collapse of a cell phone tower with entrapments and dispatched the Volunteer Fire Department Company 13 and County Ambulance Company 61 at approximately 11:40 hours.
The chief, deputy chief, and the firefighter of the first two Company 13 arrived on the scene at approximately 11:49 hours in brush truck 13. Access to the site was via a steeply inclined, wet, and muddy dirt road. The site was located on top of a tree-covered hill. There were two cell phone towers on the site. Four workers had been conducting maintenance operation on the large 343-foot tower 1 when it collapsed. Tower 2 had partially collapsed, leaving approximately 180 feet still standing, supported by only one guy wire.
The foreman of the maintenance crew was on the site. He informed the first due fire chief, who was the initial incident commander, that two of the maintenance workers were killed by the collapse and still attached to the collapsed tower. One injured worker was still attached to the tower via his fall arrest system, and one injured worker had already removed himself from the tower but was unable to walk due to leg injuries. He also told the incident commander that the power was still on and that there were wires everywhere and the second smaller tower was not stable.
The IC entered the collapse zone to access the conditions of the two injured workers and to determine what equipment was needed to remove the workers from the tower. The IC radio dispatch to confirm she was on scene with reported entrapments. The IC requested heavy rescue units for extrication. The IC relayed information over the radio to the responding companies for staffing and possible equipment needed.
Second to volunteer company, Company 7, is where the firefighter that was deceased, that was killed in this incident, he was with this group. They arrived at the bottom of the hill approximately 11:49 hours, so about lunchtime, just behind Company 13. So obviously they were dispatched simultaneously or nearly so. A captain from Company 7 arrived via four-wheel drive brush truck, while the firefighter and two other Company 7 members responded in an ambulance, which was Squad 7. The county ambulance squad also arrived at approximately the same time in another ambulance that was staffed by an EMS lieutenant and two paramedics. Shortly after that, another ambulance arrived with the EMS captain and his driver, who was an EMT. So they had quite a few resources on this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Due to the condition of the access road, Company 7 firefighters parked their squad, Squad 7, which was the brush truck.
No, it's the ambulance, I think.
Of course, or yeah, that's right. Anyway, due to the condition of the access road, Company 7 firefighters parked Squad 7, the ambulance, at the bottom of the hill. Due to the condition of the access road, the Company 7 firefighters parked their ambulance rig at the bottom of the hill. They then rode in the four-wheel drive truck to the top of the hill, about 600 yards up the access road. The county EMS captain and his driver parked at the bottom and rode also with the firefighters to the top of the hill. And the other ambulance staged at the bottom of the hill also. The assistant chief of operations for county EMS, so there was a couple ambulance units there, so he was responded. And he arrived at the bottom of the hill, and there was an officer from the State Department of Natural Resources who arrived on scene also. Not sure if it was their tower or not, Paul, maybe it was. Both drove their four-wheel drive vehicles up to the incident scene and parked behind Truck 76, about 100 feet away from the tower. So you've got numerous vehicles up there. You've got the maintenance vehicles up there. You've got a fire department vehicle up there. You've got a natural resources vehicle up there. So there's quite a few vehicles up there. It's only, 2.5 acre site. So
Yeah.
2.5 acres is not that large.
Not with buildings and guy wires and towers.
And trees, yeah. So Company 7 firefighters and the EMS captain and his driver got out of the all-wheel drive truck, and the company captain exited on the other side, on the officer side, and they began looking for the IC. They noticed only one firefighter in turnout gear because, as you remember, the IC was dressed in jeans and a high-vis jacket. They approached the tower maintenance foreman and a gentleman in a yellow high-visibility jacket who was on the right side of the truck. The foreman told the captain that the site was unsafe with live electrical hazards and that the smaller tower was unstable. So remember, the big tower had fallen and damaged the smaller tower. The Company 7 captain recognized the gentleman in the yellow jacket as the Company 13 deputy chief, and he then scanned the site and saw the actual IC wearing a matching jacket inside the collapse zone. So the chief was inside the collapse zone with his high-vis jacket, and the deputy chief was outside the collapse zone, dressed similarly.
Yeah.
He notified Central Dispatch over the radio that he was taking command, and he then had a brief discussion with the foreman and the DNR officer about stabilizing Tower 2 and setting up a perimeter. During this time,
Good
During this time, the company's 7 firefighters, including the victim, had already exited the all-wheel drive truck and were on the driver's side donning and securing gear. We're not sure what gear they were donning, probably climbing gear. They did not hear their captain or any of the discussion he had with the foreman. So situational awareness issues there.
Yep.
Yeah, at this time, the company 13 chief, who was near the collapsed tower number 1 with her firefighter, continued attempting to move one of the injured maintenance workers. She yelled to the company's 7 firefighters to provide her assistance immediately. They responded to the company 13's chief request and entered into the collapse zone to remove the injured worker who had previously freed himself from the wreckage. They had begun dragging the injured maintenance worker to safety when the EMS assistant chief of operations heard a noise and then saw Tower 2 begin to collapse. He yelled to the firefighters dragging the injured workers to run. As the firefighters were escaping, the tower collapsed to the ground, striking one of the company's 7 firefighters, the victim, on the head, breaking his helmet. The tower collapse barely missed the injured maintenance worker and the other 3 firefighters. The firefighter on the scene immediately provided assistance, and the downed firefighter was taken off the hill to an awaiting ambulance. Well, there was lots of them there. He was transported to the local hospital where he was pronounced dead.
Yeah, this is the tough deal where, it sounds like the incident commander kind of ran in right away because there's injured people there, regardless of the hazard, and then called more firefighters, regardless of the hazard, even though the other chiefs were talking about a perimeter and a safe zone and stuff like that. My fire department here in Lacombe actually had a similar incident with a car accident with downed power lines on the car energized. And I wasn't at the call, thankfully. They actually could not approach the car for quite a while until the power company was able to secure the power, and the person in the car passed away while they were watching. But the problem is it wasn't safe. And this tower with one guy wire holding it up, same kind of thing. What do you do? And that's a tough call. That's the Worcester cold warehouse, cold storage, right? No more guys today, even though the people are injured and they're in there.
Right. So, but this is typical, right? Your first in command officer gets into the weeds, involved, hands on. So your second in, who happened to be mutual aid, takes command. And so, but in that gap between getting involved and somebody actually formally taking command and putting a plan together, there's a safety gap because there's a lack of coordination. And it's exactly shortly after this gap was closed by this other guy taking command that the secondary collapse and fatalities occurred.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lesson there.
Yeah, again, it's just bad timing, I think, right? As Denise said, it was just the transition between those 2 incident commanders where there was not a lack of communication. I think they did communicate, but it was just really, there shouldn't have been that many people in there. If one person decides to drag the victim out, that's on them, but they shouldn't call for help then. So, I'm not sure. You guys are chiefs. You see it differently than me. I'd be the first arriving officer that gets in there and starts dragging, and that would be up to me. But I gotta say, I would not call if I realize in what situation I'm in. That might be the problem there. That they didn't really realize what happened, or what's happening around them. I would not call for help. I would try to drag the person out. Right? It's kind of like the trench rescue scenario when the workers trying to help their buddy that's buried, and they don't want to come out. Then we throw them shovels. Right? That's at that point it's their risk. I'm not going to jump in there to force them out. And if I'm the one that drags out a victim, well, I just try to do my best and hopefully get out alive. So, yeah.
But let me throw a hypothetical at you.
Sure.
If that had been a large pressurized ammonia tank sitting in the middle of that area, would you have been that close Would you have been right in hands on the victim, or would you have done your size up and risk assessment first? And you probably would have done what I said second. You'd have done a size up risk assessment, considered whether you could safely access any victims, injured persons,
Yeah.
and deal with them. So I think in this case, the risk envelope was not appreciated. They did not realize that a 180-foot tower was unstable. So, which suggests that they were well out of their depth with this particular incident, which is not unusual as firefighters.
Yeah,
You
it's
get
it's a well,
you get
and
called
it's not
up.
something you ever get called to. This is a
Yeah,
unique.
yeah,
That's why I picked it when I saw it. I said, "Hey, look at this. This is a unique call." I was looking for some tech rescue calls for Dirk actually when I saw this, and I thought, "Hey, well, it's not really a tech rescue because they're already on the ground." And I mean, but it is kind of. And then they went in. They fell in the hole. Here's what they did. Really.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
I would equate this to a trench rescue,
Mm-hmm.
where some worker is trapped in a trench, and the fire department who arrives, who are really not trench rescue people, don't appreciate, and you can get yourself in a world of hurt in that situation also. In fact, tech rescue, outside of the bread and butter car accident, motor vehicle collision type, which most fire departments get enough practice at. But outside of that, you get a big vehicle involved, a train involved, you get a truck involved, you get uh, a large construction crane that's unstable. You get a trench rescue. You get a rescue in a place where you've got IDLH environment because of off gassing, for instance, or anything like that. You're well outside of your usual type of call. You may only ever go to one of those in your entire career, and you're expected to handle it properly from the get-go. And that's a challenge. And I'm going to say the T word again: training. It's it's about that, understanding the risk, or at least appreciating you don't understand the risks, and working from there.
But as I was looking at future episodes, I was thinking about this, that really we don't have a lot of hazmat line of duty deaths or tech rescue line of duty deaths. The firefighters are basically getting the message, they're getting the training most of the time. Don't put yourself in hazardous zone in these complex calls that we're not trained for. And it goes back to what's his name? The cop from California there that does the talk.
Slow down.
Slow down, exactly. Yeah, come on. What's his name? Give it to me quick.
Yeah.
But and he says the low frequency, high hazard, right? That you just can't.
Gordon Graham.
Gordon Graham, and this is that type of call, but there's not a lot of line of duty deaths in these areas, so I guess that's a good thing.
But you can't just count the numbers, and I'll throw a similar type of situation. Big box store fires. There are not a lot of big box store fires or industrial fires.
Right.
Firefighters get killed in those fires. And when you look at the ratio of firefighters killed to the number of those fires, you will find that the incident for injury and death is actually proportionally quite high. And I've heard statistics that you're more likely to get killed in a large industrial fire than you are in a home fire, for instance, because we go to thousands of single family dwelling fires and very few industrial fires. And you can look at Charleston, good example.
Yeah, we've done a whole bunch of episodes where they take residential tactics to a big commercial occupancy, and it doesn't work out well.
I actually didn't expect this to be a collapse victim. I expected to be an electrocution victim.
Right.
Because that was mentioned so many times, and that should have been probably the red flag for everybody. Like, even if I don't realize that the other tower could collapse, I know there's still power to both.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, you're right.
That was communicated, right?
So they're talking about electricity, live wires. So where are these wires? These wires are what run the navigational lights on the tower, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're generally 120 volt. They run up and they run, lights at the midpoint and so forth. That's all the electricity that's on that tower, except for the transmitter. The transmitter itself, with the big cables, that pushes an enormous amount of power up those towers. But these guys are working on these towers, and these transmitters should have been locked out.
Yeah, they
So
might have been. Yep.
so you're still going to get the flex cable or the conduit with the navigational marking stuff that's live on the towers.
Yeah.
So according to the report, the occupational injuries and fatalities, of course, are often the result of one or more contributing factors or key events in a larger sequence of events that ultimately result in the injury or fatality. NIOSH investigators identified the following items as key contributing factors in this incident that likely led to the fatalities. The sequential collapses of 2 cell phone towers. That's not very common. That you don't hear about that very often. Ineffective incident command. We've talked about that a little bit. Right away, the incident commander went right in. They lost situational awareness and focused on one thing. And that's a big problem for the IC needs to be able to look at the whole picture. The lack of situational awareness, lack of training in the specific type of incident response, because that's not very common, and the lack of an incident safety officer. Again, that second set of eyes looking at the risks and recommending action to the incident commander. The recommendations that came out of the report were fire departments should develop, implement, and enforce an occupational health and safety program in accordance with NFPA 1500 standard for fire department occupational health and safety programs. In this incident, the incident commander department was the first to company and did not have any SOPs for the NIOSH investigators to review. So we are down in the, really down here in the very minimal organization of the agency, which this happens when you have a lot of small departments working independently, and there's often resistance to change when someone tries to bring in these requirements.
They're operating in the 1950s is what they're doing.
There you go. Yep.
They're 2 generations out of date, maybe 3.
I used to have a department here when I was a sales rep, and one of our neighboring departments. And anytime I went to visit there, I would leave after, and I would always say, "Welcome to Mayberry," because that's exactly what it reminded me when we went there. Is the Andy Griffith Show and Opie and all that kind of stuff, right? You're right.
But just to put it in perspective, at the level that they're operating here from an SOP point of view, radio transmission towers didn't exist.
Yeah.
There was, you had your big national broadcasting, radio towers and maybe some television towers. That was it. You didn't have all these cell phone repeaters, all these other towers around. And so, somewhere along the line when this new hazard arrived in your first response district, something should have been done from an SOP pre-plan point of view, but never clearly was.
Yeah, I've heard more stories about like cell phone transmitters and stuff like that. Dirk, have you been to any training about like being on top of a building near large cell phone transmitters and stuff? I know there's some risks involved in that. I'm not.
Yeah, we trained on some, especially those cell phone towers, because I think it's more like the radio waves. They're not really healthy for you. It's almost like you're getting X-rays, right?
Mm-hmm,
so there's a lot of warning signs, and if there's anything happening, we would wait for somebody that knows what they're doing, like our electric company or hydro company, something like that. Just have subject matter expert on scene before we do anything.
Yeah.
Again, that would be number one, right?
There are training packages out there, and so when you're driving down the street in your home district and you're doing what's new in my district, what's changed, what's going up. Oh, there's a building going up. I need to go and have a look at how they're building it. What's the risks in this building? Right through. Oh, what are those things? Those look like cell transmitters on that 10-story apartment block because the owner has seen a revenue opportunity and has accepted a contract with the cell. You should be in there and get up and look at it, know where the disconnects are, know how to lock it out, know how to make it safe, and then run off and find the resources to train on this thing. That's what you should be doing.
Exactly.
And if you're not the training officer, you're the company officer that goes and says, "Mr. Training Officer, there's a new risk. We need to train on it."
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like there's all kinds of reports coming out now about the photovoltaic panels on roofs and how they burn, because they burn very acceleratedly because of the enclosed airspace between the panel and the roof material. And so the fire behavior, the fire behavior is really interesting in that area now.
Yeah.
The second department to respond, which the deceased firefighter belonged to, was providing mutual aid at the incident. They had a full array of SOPs covering the risks attached with firefighting and heavy rescue, motor vehicles, etc., like you were saying, Denis, but nothing for, cell towers. The benefits of having clear, concise, and practiced SOPs are numerous. For example, they can become a training outline and a tool guide for fire department members. Above all, a fully implemented training on SOPs can improve department safety, which is it's all about, like you said, Denny, the big T. Recommendation number 2, fire department should ensure incident commander conducts initial size up and risk assessment of the incident scene before beginning operations. Establish a secondary command post, maintains the role of director of the incident scene, and does not become involved in operations. I remember the first call I went to as a captain, and it was actually our ex-fire chief's house. And he had a chimney fire that caught onto the roof and the structure. And then we were out there and we're doing the firefighting and all. It's all good. And one of our firefighters was trying to start a chainsaw, and he couldn't get the chainsaw started. So of course I'm the world's best chainsaw starter, so I knew that. So I went over there and helped him with starting the chainsaw and got it going. And the retired chief came to me. He says, "Paul," he says, "aren't you like the captain? Aren't you in charge?" "Yeah." He says, "What do you do in starting a chainsaw? That's not your job. You need to make sure that everything's safe and everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing." It's like, oh, okay, lesson learned. Thank you very much, Chief.
That comes with experience, because especially when you make the transition from firefighter to officer, it is so hard to get your hands off it. And sometimes, you know what, if the two firefighters can't get it done, then you have to help to accomplish the mission, right? But then keep in mind, if you are the instant commander at the same time, like the old Bronzini, right? First arriving officer is in charge, stays in charge. That's when stuff can happen, right? So transferring command as quickly as possible to somebody that is either more experienced or just has a better line of sight.
Look at incident command, though. This IC had how many people under them, right? You're talking about the ICS span of control, 3 to 7 max, depending on the hazard of the area you're in. And there was all kinds of people. We got confused even reading them off. The same thing happened in Baltimore when that building collapsed, and the incident commander was completely overwhelmed. And then we had freelancing and on, and accidents happen.
But I'm gonna give you the voice of the small county fire department here. It says, you know, the fire chief is on the truck. He may even be driving the truck. Shame on him for doing that, but he may even be driving the truck. And you know they go with one or two.
I like to drive.
Well, okay. The decision there is you're not the fire chief. Then you're the driver. Be the driver.
Yep.
Don't accept the promotion. Don't be that one guy who mops the floor, takes the tickets at the door for the fundraiser, is the fire chief, the driver, the pump operator, the chainsaw starter, all of those guys. Because frankly, you got 15 guys who'll stand in a circle and watch you because it's very entertaining.
That would be called the Paul Fire Department.
I'm glad Doug's not here to add to fuel to the fire.
Anyway, I had a serious point to make. Not just ribbing Paul, and actually I'm ribbing myself because I've done that myself. And shame on me, and I knew better, but sometimes, just like Dirk says, you just got to get the stopper out of the bottle to make the thing flow, right? But really what we're talking about in recommendation 2 here is he conducts initial size up and risk assessment of the incident scene before beginning operations. There's a term for this. It's called an incident action plan. And so this incident action plan that you're developing is how you're going to go forward, applying your resources in a safe manner, understanding the conditions of what's going on at the incident and what you hope to accomplish within that first action period and what that action period is. So you're gonna say, well, that's all words and all this and that and the other thing. And there's only 3 of us that were there, but in this case there were resources on the road. And as an incident commander, you may not actually have the technical skills to understand all aspects of that, but that's where you gather your folks around you. Just like I said, that's a big ammonia tank, not a half standing tower. And you have this discussion. Where's the risk? Where's this? Where's that? What can we seriously accomplish? Yeah, the guy's over there in the woods. He's screaming and yelling because he's got a broken thigh or whatever the case may be. We understand that that's not going to change, but it doesn't serve anybody to not understand the risks, and even just to know how to approach this guy and how to take him out. The obvious thing is to grab him and drag him towards the road. That may be the completely wrong direction to go in. Yeah, maybe going through the woods is a smarter move. And you're going to take all the smart moves and the tower's never going to fall. That's just life, right? But it could have. But I don't so sure that entire assessment was done. And even in a small fire department, there's always people around you. You don't have to do everything yourself. You're not the cook, the bottle washer, the cashier, the waitress or the waiter. You're not all of these people together. Get the resources you need, do it properly.
And to quote Gordon Graham, slow down. If it's a situation you've never seen before, that should be right there, should be the click. It's like, oh, I've never seen this before. I don't have any recognition from decision making in my brain computer, right? There's nothing there, so that means like, okay, I'll slow down here. Everybody back, and that it's tough sometimes to hold back your forces, but that comes with discipline and well trained firefighters too, right?
And you're going to get the argument, Dirk, that, well, there's somebody there who desperately needs our attention, medically speaking. What happened in this incident? One of their firefighters got seriously injured. He got priority. He was transported out first, was put in an ambulance, and transported away. So the initial people that came to help, all those resources were diverted to dealing with the firefighter. So they served no positive outcome for the people who were already injured. So
and the injured gentleman survived. So I mean,
right,
that could be just pure luck,
right.
but
yeah. So I'm going to take another analogy: busting red lights with your sirens and lights going on, and getting into a massive crash in an intersection, never making it to the scene of the incident. What purpose have you served other than diverting resources badly needed at the scene to deal with your issue?
That's
so
right.
It's a cultural thing.
Yep. Request for right of way, stop before you go into the intersection, and then proceed against the light when it's clear to do so.
Yeah.
that's also officers' responsibility. I mean, it's a driver's responsibility first, but it's the officer that has to calm guys down, and I think that's where the say comes from. It's not your emergency. Doesn't take away from the urgency of the event, but it's not my emergency. I don't have to rush in there like it's my family that's on in the burning building. Right, so we have to disconnect ourselves a little bit to get us there safe and then do our job.
Yeah. I mean, I know this sounds like a rabbit hole we've gone down, but not really. It's cultural across everything, right? So you do every stage, with your eyes wide open, essentially, understanding that, you're trying to accomplish something. And if you ignore, the potholes on the way, you're bound to twist an ankle or worse, metaphorically speaking.
My experience always was, over the 39 years or whatever in the services, the calls that sound really bad usually were nothing. And the calls that sound like nothing were the bad, complex calls. And these guys fell into that trap. The incident commander ran right in there. In the discussion for the recommendation, there was no separate incident command post or area that was established, and there was no transfer of command between the two incident commanders, the first on scene and the next, because the first on scene one was involved with the patient. There's nothing wrong with fast attack mode, but that communication has to happen, and the risks needs to be assessed. And they didn't see the risk. Number 3 says fire departments should ensure firefighters are trained in situational awareness. Rich Gassaway and Gordon Graham, right?
And Denny
Prevost, yeah. I'll ask Rich to give us a little something for a plug there. Let's see. All firefighters operating in incidents should maintain situational awareness and conduct a continuous risk assessment throughout the incident, reporting unsafe or changing conditions to the incident commander. Technical rescue incidents are high-risk, low-frequency events, making them particular hazardous for first responders. When responding to an incident of any type of technical rescue or collapse, firefighters and first responders must ensure their personal safety as well as safety as others, including the individuals they are trying to assist and help. Complacency and lack of situational awareness are issues that responders must avoid when dealing with technical rescue incidents. In this incident, command was never established properly, nor was any type of incident action plan, right out of Denis' mouth 10 minutes ago.
So, by the way, we didn't write this.
No, this is the NIOSH report.
Right.
Were developed and communicated to arriving personnel. The IC was inside the collapse zone attempting to move an injured worker. When additional crews arrived at the scene, the IC then requested assistance inside the collapse zone from responding crews. A potential collapse hazard from Tower 2 and the possible electrical hazards from the energized Tower 1 were present inside the collapse zone, but these were not communicated to the firefighters from Company 7. Recommendation number 4, fire departments should develop pre-incident plans for deployment to technical rescue incidents and conduct a risk-benefit analysis for the deployment. Central Dispatch deployed what was recommended to them by the County Fire Chiefs Association. The request for additional units or an upgrade was at the request of the incident commander. A best practice would have been pre-planned responses for technical rescue incidents, including how to deal with incidents that involve collapse and entrapment. So if you have these towers or other unique hazards in your zone, you need to have a plan how you're going to deal with them.
Yeah, I find not everybody is trained in technical rescue. And if you have specialties, it's going to take a while till they come. But if you have these resources, you should teach your people an awareness level. Kind of like stay away from the trench. Don't jump in there. No, scene safety first. Shut off all the vibration sources. All this stuff. Like there's so many very basic awareness courses that could have helped in that sense. Especially the red flag would have been if somebody yells the power is still on. That should have been automatic, full stop. Everybody stops. Everybody out of the collapse zone, or the possible electrocution zone.
Right.
I think that could have saved that life.
And let me put my engineer's hat here on for a minute.
Here comes the iron ring.
Yeah. And particularly more and more these days, anything that is engineered, whether it be a parking garage or whether it be a tall building or whether it be a radio tower, even a cell phone tower, whatever the case may be, the engineers have figured out what its maximum capabilities are going to be and have designed it that way. And there isn't an ounce of wasted material in any of those things. And this 300 and some foot height, 343 or whatever it was, had triple guy wires on it. And the tower itself is really 3 standing legs, which are just like pipes, and all these crossbars. And the reason it collapsed, in my opinion, was because they were removing these crossbars. And essentially, what happened then is what's left buckled, right? So just take a straw, push on the end, it's going to buckle. But if you support it in the middle, it won't. It's bridge technology. So anytime you see a guy wire missing on a tower or a piece of structural missing on a tower, it's in imminent danger of collapsing. Same thing in a building. Same reason we don't go into buildings that are severely fire damaged until we get some type of a structural assessment as to whether it's safe to be in there. We put shoring up, or we do whatever we need to do, or we stay the hell out of there. Whatever the case may be. So it's as part of awareness in a general sense, as if a structure is damaged in any significant way, and I'm not talking the paint chipped off of it, I'm not talking a hand railing missing, but damaged in any significant way, it's likely unsafe.
Yep, absolutely. 100% right is that, you can't expect that extra margin in there because it was designed low bid. It was designed to be minimal use of resources. And if something's missing, it most likely to fail. Not a lot of the old stuff used to be over-engineered, right? Just because they didn't have the technology.
Yeah, they didn't have the computers. I used to run computer analysis for structural stuff and in piping and equipment and supports, and you could learn a lot of where the weak points are. But in the old days, it was literally slide rule of thumb. A column this high needs to be this big, and it's that simple. So there was some fat in there, but less and less is that happening. And all you get to do is go into a modern house, and you'll see a 2x3 with a sheet 1/4 inch of MDF, made up, and another piece of 2x3, and that's holding your floor up. Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it only takes 5 minutes to fire before it's no longer holding the floor up.
Fire, water, anything, extra stress, any of those will make it fail.
Or 4 firefighters jumping on the floor above, and she's coming down, buddy.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
you need to know.
Recommendation number 5 was, of course, ensuring a separate incident safety officer, independent from the incident commander, is appointed, especially at technical rescue incidents. David Dodson, The author of the book Fire Department Incident Safety Officer states that firefighters' can-do attitude compels firefighters to action whether they are adequately trained for the specific situation or not, just like we talked about. This incident was a technical rescue situation involving injured and deceased workers trapped within the wreckage of a collapsed cell phone tower. The site foreman advised the responding firefighters the remaining tower was unstable and the electrical power was still on. A designated safety officer could have assisted at this incident with continual size up, accountability, and timely communications regarding the safety and the stability of the remaining tower. I mean, okay, there's one guy wire holding it up. Which way's the wind? That's going to be my first question, right? Is it coming from the direction of the guy wire? It might still hold it up, or not. I know I did that one time too. We were at a motor vehicle accident, and he had hit a power pole on a big 3-phase line, and the person was in the vehicle, and the truck was against the power pole and stuff. And so I grabbed one of those stabilizing strut things and I put it on the pole. So, well, at least maybe that'll help. I got heck for touching the pole. I'm going, well, we're touching the vehicle anyway. I mean, it might help. It might not. It was probably a stupid thing to do, but our can-do attitude, right? We got this. Recommendation number 6, especially fire departments, especially volunteer fire departments, should consider limiting their special operations functions to those that they are properly trained and equipped for. In discussion, in this event, the first 2 volunteer fire department was initially dispatched for the report of structural collapse and responded with 3 department members. Once on scene, incident command radio dispatched to confirm cell phone tower collapse with construction workers trapped. Due to the lack of training records for the first 2 company and lack of individual training records for the initial incident commander and firefighters, their capacities to participate in special operations could not be determined if they had experience and training. Yes, Denis?
So I think that this recommendation is there's a lot more layers to this than is obvious on the surface. It says especially volunteer fire departments. Let's ignore that for now because I can think of some non-volunteer departments who have the same issues.
Yeah, it has no difference.
Limiting their special operations functions to those that are properly trained and equipped. This could be an underlying reason why this incident went the way it went. One of the things I see in some of my work, particularly in the volunteer service, because it generally is volunteer around here, is that the majority of the incidents they go to are medical incidents. 40, 50, 60, 70%. And in Ontario, where I was a fire chief for many years, 50% is not an uncommon number, and it's career departments, volunteer departments across the board. So when you get there, you tend to look at the incident, if there's people involved who are injured, as a medical incident. And so you've got the medical component that you're responding to, but yet there's a technical rescue component to it, which this, like I said, is your once in career incident. Maybe you're never in career incident. So you're focused in on the things you're trained and equipped to do, a medical call, and you're not focused in on the thing that's about to kill you. And so I can see where that can happen. And I know some people could call that complacency, but I would suggest to you it's like sending the police to a house fire, and you'll see this all the time. The police will go around opening doors and breaking windows and trying to rescue people. It's wonderful, and they get commendations when they do rescue people, pulling people out of burning cars and so forth. All great things, good outcome. But it's not always a good outcome because they are unfamiliar with the risk. In this case, I think also they were doing what they knew to do, and the thing that they didn't know to do got them. And so I think that, again, it's a situational awareness thing, and it's dangerous, potentially dangerous, which is you need to have those skills.
We do train, like when you talk about medical, what's the first thing everybody says? Scene safety. And it's that's just this buzzword. It's like scene safety, scene is safe, right? But then thinking about, okay, what is it? It's the bigger picture. Is the vehicle collision? Is the power box the vehicle's parked on? Is the fluids down? And all this stuff. But for the medical part, it's just like, oh yeah, scene safety is taken care of, PPE, and we just move on. So,
but Dirk, you do these circles, right? You do the outer circle and then the inner circle.
Absolutely.
Well, what happens if your outer circle is not big enough to accommodate a 180-foot tower, which, by the way, is a 360-foot circle?
Mm-hmm.
and you're just concerned about, oh, there's live electrical in there. Let's look out for the wires within that circle, and the
Right.
bigger circle got you.
This reminds me though of 10 years ago, me encouraging my fire officers when they respond to a motor vehicle incident to grab a couple of 4x4 blocks or a couple of wheel wedges. And I actually bought little wheel wedges to put on the vehicle's tires because electric vehicles were just coming in, the old Toyota Priuses and Chevy Volts and whatever. And the car is stopped. It's been in an accident. And then firefighter Joe or Joan leans up against it and the car starts to move. Put some wedges on there. But it was really hard to get firefighters to comprehend that risk. They're not used to the electric vehicle, that if you just change a little bit of the resistance against it, it may move forward or back. So, it's the same kind of thing. It's hard if you're not aware of the risks, it's hard to educate people about it. I had put a note here in the notes about, perhaps discussing like the BC playbook. British Columbia and Ontario are taking this one step further, where they're actually defining the response levels of the departments to being exterior only, limited interior, or full service. I had this same problem in Fort Saskatchewan. Fort Saskatchewan, a city of 30,000 people with heavy industry and even industrial fire brigades and all this kind of stuff. There was high expectations for this fire department to perform technical rescue and hazmat. And that was the assumed when I got there. But when I got digging into training records, it was like, uh-oh. And when I made the firefighters go and visit these plants for familiarization, a form of, I used to call it pre-planning by osmosis. Hey, go hang out at this company or that company and maybe you'll learn something. And the company would say, you're going to come rescue us, right? And my firefighters would all come back to the station and say, like, we're not trained for this. These guys are expecting us to come do technical rescue or come do hazmat, and we don't have the training or the equipment. And then, of course, I went to my chief and I said, hey, chief, we're going to need to spend a lot of money on training and equipment here soon, or, change the myth of what they're expecting. Same kind of thing.
So that's been very common, that your playbook is a fundamental component of the Nova Scotia Fire Service. It's actually written in the Act. And in the examples,
Act? What's an act? You have a fire service act in Nova Scotia?
yeah, let's
Really?
not go there.
We don't
Yes,
have
we
an
do.
act in Alberta. It's free for all. It's Wild West. Do what you want.
It's actually part of the Municipal Government Act, so it doesn't. It's not worthy of its own act, but that's beside the point. Um, but the fire departments actually, when they sign contracts with their local municipality, have to state the level of service they're going to provide, their interior, defensive, whatever the case may be. The problem is that actually has limited bearing on what they actually do at incidents. It may have an impact on public expectations if the public were aware of necessarily what they have contracted to do. The more difficult situation is what the firefighters actually understand that means and how they behave. And I'll take you back to a very good example, and it happened in Ontario about 25 years ago, where in Fort Erie there was one or two firefighters drowned trying to rescue somebody, and they weren't properly trained to do water rescue at that time. And basically, it was an edict came out by the province that you're not doing water rescue, and certainly the fire department stopped doing water rescue because they weren't properly trained and equipped to do it. And so now you're in a situation where you're standing on the shore and somebody needs rescue, and there's an interdiction against you participating. So the tendency is it's all fine and good to write this down. It's all fine and good, to train for what you're capable of doing. But when push comes to shove and something needs doing, I'm going down in that trench and I'm getting that guy, or I'm going in and I'm getting that guy who was hurt by the tower, or I'm going in the pond and I'm getting that guy out. We lose firefighters every year. We lose them in training for these incidents, and we lose them in actual incidents. So we're an all hazards response organization, and we don't spend a lot of time telling people what we can't do. And so that, I think, is that pressure is always sitting on your shoulders. I'm there, people expect me to do that. And there was a recent incident where the firefighters refused to rescue a couple's dog because it was in flowing water. So it's technically fast moving water, right? It's a different skill set than walking on a still pond. And right now, currently, as I speak, there is a deer on an ice in an inlet that is tidal. And the fire department is on social media telling people why they are not rescuing the deer. And so that's going to blacken their name, telling people that no, we're not rescuing Bambi. But realistically, if you've ever been by Bambi, he can kill you.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
part of his basic design is killing predators.
Defend himself. Yeah, and they're going
Right.
to take care.
And they're on ice and they can't stand and they can't walk and this deer is doomed. That's not what they're saying, but in fact that is what's happening. So, like how do you like you can emotionally scar people who are at these incidents. So you need to be prepared beforehand to deal with these things and to let your folks know that it's okay to stand back and be safe
Yeah.
when it's clear that the risks outweigh the benefits. But in this case, they may have had options: pull the tower the other direction, make it safe, turn off the electricity, so there's different things that they could have gone and still saved the guy. So,
yeah, I mean the call that my fire department went to there in with the vehicle on a power pole, and they stood there and watched this person waving at them to be rescued, and they could not go to the vehicle because the power line was on the vehicle, arcing away, and I mean it was very traumatic for the firefighters.
Yeah, but was that patient in danger of expiring before the firefighter was going to die from being electrocuted? So that's the question.
Exactly.
So again, if you've got to make this stuff up on the day and the hour and the minute that you arrive there, you're doomed.
Yeah.
Chances are it's the roll of the dice. Are you going to get it right? Are you going to get it lucky? Are you going to get it wrong? Well, there's 6 sides to the dice. Only one of them is right. So
great discussion. Dirk, any other? You're a TR guy.
No, I think we beat this horse to death.
So. Okay. Excellent. Great. Uncle.
Or cat.
Or cat. Yeah. Dirk's cat was joining us on the podcast video here. Thank you for listening to another Emergency Traffic Podcast. We appreciate your interest and hope you find it interesting and informative. Give us a like, a star, a thumbs up on what the app you use to listen. They mean a lot to us and they help the algorithms for more people to find out about us. You can follow us on Twitter, Podcast Traffic, or our Facebook page, the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Or you can email us at emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. Let's be safe out there. Last words?
Slow down.
Gordon Graham, absolutely slow down. If you ever get a chance to watch Gordon Graham, his presentations online, YouTube, I show it to new firefighter students always, and it's definitely worth it.